From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up on AgDay, it's a day many thought might never happen. A break in the trade war with China.
This is a very important and remarkable occasion.
The two sides signing a Phase 1 agreement. Today on AgDay, team coverage on what's in the deal and what's not, and the next steps.
It's a big deal for U.S. agriculture.
After 18 months of a trade war with China, there is now a truce. Good morning. I'm Clinton Griffiths. President Trump and Chinese Vice Premier Liu He signing the Phase 1 trade agreement at the White House.
Today we take a momentous step, one that has never been taken before with China, toward a future of fair and reciprocal trade as we sign Phase 1 of the historic trade deal between the United States and China.
President Trump promoting this signing as a way of delivering economic justice for American workers. The big news coming out of this for ag. China's agreed to purchase and import, on average, at least $40 billion worth of U.S. food, ag, and seafood products annually for a total of at least $80 billion over the next 2 years.
China was doing $16 billion with the farmers, and they stopped. Why not? You know, they're in a negotiation. So our people agreed to 20, and I said, no, make it 50. What difference does it make? Make it 50. They say, sir, our farmers can't produce that much. I said, I love our farmers. Let them tell me they can't do it. And I said, tell them to go out and buy a larger tractor, buy a little more land, but they'll be able to do it. I have no doubt they'll be able to do it.
As the two sides have agreed based on the market demand in China, in line with market terms, Chinese businesses will purchase $40 billion of agricultural products from the United States annually. If the demand is strong, the companies may buy more.
President Trump says tariffs with China will remain in place until such time as both parties have a Phase 2 agreement. Those negotiations are set to begin immediately. The U.S. Trade Representative releasing fact sheets on the deal after the signing ceremony. The key part for producers, China's purchase agreement of $40 billion in ag, but there are also provisions for beef, saying that China will expand the scope of beef products allowed to be imported, eliminating the age restrictions on cattle slaughtered for export to China and eliminating unnecessary cattle traceability requirements. As for pork, China will also broaden the list of pork products eligible for import to include processed products like ham. Rice is also listed for importation, along with U.S. fruits and vegetables like avocados, blueberries, potatoes, and barley. The fact sheets do not lay out specific dollar amounts of each of these products. While the deal may be a little light on specific numbers, it represents a thaw in the long trade war for now. Farm Journal's Tyne Morgan tells us why this trade war has weighed heavily on the minds of producers and if economists think the trade war may be over.
As China and the U.S. signed the Phase 1 agreement Wednesday, there was hope the cloud of uncertainty surrounding trade would finally be lifted. Instead, the markets didn't seem impressed with soybeans closing down double digits. University of Missouri's Seth Myers says some of that may be due to China saying the amount it buys will be dictated by market conditions.
I think the market was a bit surprised about the emphasis put on, at the market purchases and then the back weighting, which really means this has to go smoothly for the first 12 months before things get really rolling. And in the back end, it's quite a lot.
Meyer says currently the price isn't right for China on major ag goods.
Right now, we're not all that price competitive. So I think that the market, we got a little backloading, a little statements on price competitiveness, and that put folks off a bit.
While the deal didn't specify how much China is promising to buy of each good, it did include a long list of what?
We did get, as we expected, kind of a list of what counts. But it's a big list. It's a big, broad list. So you can't really narrow down, and it certainly doesn't say how many soybeans they'll buy this year or next.
Meyer pointed out the Phase 1 agreement is a 2-year deal, and the market will be on edge watching what exactly China buys.
Anybody that thought this was going to be resolved and the signing of this and the beginning of the trade deal, I think we got another 12 months of just probably lingering uncertainty.
But as the trade uncertainty lingers, there's no indication if the trade war is over or not. Reporting for AgDay, I'm Tyne Morgan.
All right, thanks, Tyne. The market's not liking the lack of detail in the agreement that was signed with soybeans sinking. That's despite the fact USDA reported a flash sale of 126,000 metric tons of soybeans to China. Corn also trending down, but many analysts say you can't ignore the importance of the deal.
It's a big deal for U.S. agriculture. It means that China is back in our marketplace. They're now regular buyers once again. We don't know exactly how the Chinese will make their programs work, but we assume that they may have duty-free licensing, which means that the Chinese will keep their tariffs in place, but give the opportunity for their importers to look at which commodities they will be buying under a zero-duty import program.
Bossy reminding everyone that Chinese have 30 days to get the program operational. He says he's hopeful China will buy a few U.S. goods before their Lunar New Year holiday on January 25th. One ag economist says we also need to look at what's not happening with this deal right now.
I think my view of the deal is two. One is the tariffs that were put in place up to September last year are going to remain. So U.S. tariffs are going to be around about, on average, 20% against $250 billion worth of imports, and the Chinese are going to maintain their tariffs. So we're not getting rid of all the tariffs. So the upside is we've stopped escalation of the trade war, but we haven't got to rolling back the tariffs. That's what's missing in the deal. Two, the deal, in no place does the deal mention Chinese industrial policies and subsidies, particularly towards their state-owned enterprises. And this was one of the most fundamental issues that started the trade war in the first place. So in a sense, I take a sort of a glass half full view of this, is that it's slowed down. We have a truce in the trade war, but I think there are still things left to be done.
Sheldon points out the highest amount we've ever exported to China with ag was $27 billion worth back in 2012-2013. And with the deal now calling for $40 billion a year, a big increase, he says Chinese observers are arguing that they're not sure the demand is there. And we're going to have much more on the signing of the Phase 1 trade agreement coming up, including market reaction and why analysts say markets were down after the big announcement. And later, more reaction from industry leaders. And make sure to check out agweb.com for a complete wrap-up on the deal. A real mixed bag of weather is starting to move across the country. Meteorologist Cindy Clausen joins us. Cindy, we're talking snow, rain, and ice.
Yeah, we definitely have some messy weather that's going to be moving across, especially the nation's midsection once again. Check this out. Now, this is just one model of many, but you can see rain, snow, and ice making their way up from the Four Corners region up through the Plain States and into the upper Midwest again. And some of those areas that keep getting hit by snow, especially Minnesota, Wisconsin, parts of northern Illinois, and into Michigan, you're going to see more snow there again. But we worry about that ice as well, and that's where you're seeing that orange color. But let's talk about something nicer. It is calving time, and we're seeing several new cute faces showing up on the farm. Darren of Idaho sharing this cute picture with us. Again, I can't get enough of these, so please keep sending in those little baby pictures. All right, I'll have a lot more on your forecast coming up in just a little bit. Clinton?
Happening today, the Senate is expected to ratify the new U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement. The plan passed the Senate Appropriations Committee and the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee on Wednesday. That clears the way for the chamber to take up the agreement. And Republican Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said the Senate will do that today. It passed the U.S. House last month. Now, after it passes in the Senate, which it's expected to do, it will head to the president's desk for his signature. Does the Phase 1 signing in Washington take a blanket off the soybean market? We'll talk about that next in analysis. And later, the big beef packers are working to get an antitrust lawsuit against them dismissed. We'll have an update from drovers. The Dow climbing past 29,000 on Wednesday. Commodities spending most of the day mixed, with Chicago wheat prices at one point gaining double digits. Let's see where things closed from the CME.
Soybeans were really concerned about the quality of the Phase 1 trade deal. Now, the details are just like all flooding out. Everyone's trying to digest exactly what's happening. There's a couple of issues that we're looking at as well that are outside that trade deal, as Brazil's pricing is at a discount to the U.S., and it makes it very difficult for us to really get some movement. I know that there has been some uncertainty about what actually China is going to be buying from the U.S. Even though the numbers look like they could be good, perhaps the market's been the information has been baked into the market somewhat. We're going to watch that closely. I think there's going to be a lot more volatility in the market, certainly in the next couple of days, as everyone digests all the details out of this big trade deal.
Jeff French with Top Third Ag Marketing, our guest in studio today. And Jeff, let's just begin with reaction to the signing of a Phase 1 trade deal. What's your initial thought on this?
Well, I mean, if you look at the market's a little soft here. You know, we heard that number all along, the 40 billion. Now the market wants to see the actual purchase come along. Personally, I think it's a big deal. I mean, it's the removal of a wet blanket that's been on this market here for the last 18 months. So it's something that we can move forward on with actual demand. So market was a little soft here, but it will be key of how these purchases come here into the future.
Yeah, and we'll be watching, and I think, we have been trying to watch and see if China is going to make any purchases. They did buy a few cargoes of soybeans today as this was being announced, but it seems like the market's waiting for something big.
Well, yeah, they want to see the actual purchases, and they want to see what commodity it will be. A lot of people think that it will be mainly beans and pork. Obviously, they need the pork. We have it. That could be good. So we're going to have to be, maybe wait 30 days here to get this plan implemented. But again, I think it's initially a good response here, and hopefully we can see higher prices moving forward.
Between the USDA report a couple weeks ago and now this Phase 1 trade deal being signed, and we're talking about getting USMCA done this week, have you heard enough to put 2019 behind you and start on 2020?
Well, a lot of people want it to be behind us, but it's one thing that, we've heard from the USDA that they potentially could resurvey the top tier states, really not putting 2019 to bed yet here. So moving forward, the key points that I'm looking at, mainly the corn and the beans, 392 in the March corn, that's a big number, that's a triple top. If we get above there, we can probably run this market up. The funds remain short corn. They are betting on lower prices.
Okay.
But again, if we get above that triple top, they might start buying that back.
Okay, well, it'll be something to watch. And of course, we'll be watching what happens with trade and trade purchases. We appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being here. We'll be back with more Ag Day coming up in just a minute.
For a special report on the grain markets, call toll free at 877-TT-HEDGE. That's 877-884-3343.
Meteorologist Cindy Clausen joining us with a look at the weather map. And Cindy, it almost looks like kind of a tranquil day out there across the Midwest.
Yeah, don't get used to that. We're going to have another interesting storm system that's going to be bringing some crazy weather, especially as we get into that Friday, Saturday time frame. Let's take a look because it's going to get a little complicated. We actually have 3 areas to watch today. One is in the northeast where we have a low that's going to be moving away. A second low on the back side of that system, that we're going to start to see that moisture really increasing. It's going to be snow, it's going to be rain, it's going to be ice here. The third area is in the northwest, and eventually we're going to see the energy between these two sort of combine as we get into our Friday forecast. High pressure keeping things quiet in the upper Midwest for today, but that's going to change. So watch as we really see that moisture increase here in the southern plains, and then as we get into the northeast, we just are left with a little bit of snow there. Now in the northwest, we're going to be seeing some of that rain and higher elevation snow, but we really start to pick up some more of that moisture as we get into our Friday. Look at that as we get into the southern plains and into the central plains, and we start to see that snow and ice really picking up again, especially as you get into parts of Missouri and into Kansas as well. That other low from the west is going to be coming in. Those are going to be sort of coming together eventually as we see all that moisture streaming up now. We're starting to pick some Gulf moisture up here. So here's 7 o'clock Friday evening, and things get really messy for parts of the Midwest and especially upper Midwest as we see that colder air, and that high pressure moves in to quiet things down in the northeast for a day or so. Let's take a look at the precipitation. Most of it has been in the south and into the northwest, and you can see we're going to be picking up more in the next 24 hours, especially Texas, Oklahoma, and of course out west where you have that second low pressure system. So here's their snowfall. Most of it's been in the northwest. We're going to add to that in the northeast with the first low, and then in the next 24 hours we really see that starting to pick up into parts of the upper Midwest and into the Four Corners region as well. Temperatures still really cold in the north central United States, and we're going to start to see that cold air shifting off to the east. You're going to see some really chilly overnight lows starting to move towards the Great Lakes and into the northeastern United States, while it's still fairly mild across the southern tier of states. Into tomorrow, we're only in the single digits now in Bangor, while we're warming up, almost a heat wave, right, in the 20s in parts of the upper Midwest. Here's that jet stream, and we start off with that trough in the northeastern part of the country, and then there's that second trough. So that storm system is going to be on the front edge of this trough, but look at what's going to happen as we get into the early part of next week. That is some seriously cold air for the northeastern part of the country. So watch out for that as we get into Monday and Tuesday, while we see a warm up in parts of the plains. But yet another trough will come as we get towards the middle to latter part of the week. That's a look at your national forecast. Now let's check on the weather where you live. Clayton, New Mexico, some showers today, light snow tonight with a high of 37 degrees. Clear Lake, Wisconsin, mostly sunny but very cold with a high of 10. And Fulton, New York, blowing snow and snow, falling temperatures, early high of 33.
Coming up, it can be a costly problem for producers, bovine congestive heart failure. But researchers are starting to unlock the mysteries behind it. Details on what they've found next. Lawyers for America's largest beef packing companies are trying to get a class action lawsuit filed against them dismissed. The lawsuit was filed last year by a group of ranchers. RCAF USA filed the suit in Chicago against Tyson, JBS, Cargill, and National Beef Packing Company. The suit claimed from 2015 through the present, the packers conspired to depress the price of fed cattle they purchased from American ranchers, inflating the company's own margins and profits. But as Drover's Greg Henderson reports, lawyers for the beef packers claim the alleged evidence is from unreliable hearsay.
In their request for dismissal, the beef packers claimed that even after filing a 100-page brief opposing dismissal, the ranchers' legal team had not shown nearly enough facts to allow the case to proceed to massive antitrust discovery. The beef packers claim the suit fails to allege specific actions by each defendant in support of the supposed conspiracy, and it ignores the federal government's explanation that market forces, not collusion, accounted for the changes in fed cattle prices and slaughter volumes that are at the center of plaintiffs' claims.
Scientists may have uncovered two genes which cause heart failure in feedlot cattle. Researchers from USDA's Meat Animal Research Center and the University of Nebraska-Lincoln worked on the project. Bovine congestive heart failure can be costly for cattle producers, with losses exceeding $250,000 annually for operations. Now, the research group sampled 102 cases of BCHF and were able to single out two genes. Animals with both risk factors were approximately 15-fold more likely to have BCHF than those without. Scientists don't know the role the genes play in the disease, but the research could help classify animals by genetic risk for heart failure and help producers make decisions when it comes to breeding and animal health. When we come back, in the works for 18 months, we'll have more reaction to the Phase 1 signing, plus highlights after the break. Getting reaction from across the industry in regards to the trade deal with China. The National Milk Producers Federation saying the deal is a positive step forward, adding, quote, "These are important deliverables that USDEC has been pressing China for over the course of the last few years. We need to continue to work with our government, China's government, and our customers to finish the job by lifting the remaining Chinese retaliatory tariffs against our exports," end quote. The National Cattlemen's Beef Association calling it a game changer for the industry, saying, quote, "For many years, Chinese consumers have been denied access to high-quality U.S. beef, the same U.S. beef we feed to our families. The removal of these massive trade barriers gives Chinese consumers access to the U.S. beef they desire, and it gives America's cattlemen and cattlewomen the opportunity to provide U.S. beef to a growing consumer base that represents 1/5 of the global population and a middle class that is greater than the entire U.S. population. And Zippy Duvall, the American Farm Bureau Federation, saying, quote, "This agreement will help turn around 2 years of declining agricultural exports. The potential of tens of billions more in exports is welcome news for farmers who are eager to compete on a more level playing field," end quote. Reaction continuing to come in about this agreement that we will be watching for the next several months to see how it all plays out. That's all the time we have this morning. Sure glad you tuned in. It's been part of your day with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.